This breastbone in here. We're on the inside, right? I've got this hard breastbone here, and what we want to do is crack that breastbone so we can lay this chicken flat. It doesn't want to lay flat. So I just tend to set the base. I'm using a chef's knife here, and I just set the base of that knife right on that hard part, and I just smack it one. And it just busted that breastbone right there. And now I can lay that chicken flat. And what you can do here is I've exposed a little bit of the hard bone. It's cartilage up in the top here, hard bone on the bottom. And I'm just gonna go ahead and pull out that hard bone. You see how I'm just kind of running my thumb through that thing? I'm just kind of running it through there and getting that meat off of there, and that little piece of cartilage came off, okay? The more cartilage you have, you can see this is pretty calcified here, this bone right here. The more cartilage you have, the younger the chicken is. As the chicken ages, you get more and more bone in there as it calcifies over time. I'm gonna set that aside. By the way, that was flavor. We like all of that. We never throw that stuff away, okay? Going back to my bird, he's laying pretty flat. I see a little piece of liver on there. I'm gonna get rid of that. We don't want that liver on there, it's gross. I am gonna go ahead and just kind of inspect things. I wanna turn it over. There's one more cut that I like to make here. I never like to leave the knobs on my chicken, on the end of my chicken legs. I hate that look. It reminds me that this used to be a creature. And so I'm gonna just go ahead. I'm gonna take the base of my heavy knife here, and I'm gonna knock those right off of there. I just like getting rid of those, and those are gonna go in the stock pot. When these cook, the meat is gonna kind of work its way down the bone, and these will be nice little Frenched drumsticks with a little clean bone sticking out at the end. So I always like to knock those off, and then you get this beautiful little French drumstick when you're done with this roasting. Save those little knobs. There's a lot of flavor there. And so now I have my bird spatchcocked, and I'm ready to go ahead and start salting and peppering this thing. Chef Stephanie, good to see you. Awesome. Nick Parker, look at this. Look at all these people. Thanks for coming around and hanging out. Tell you what, guys, I need another sip. Let's take another sip, shall we? Let's all do this together. Cheers. Prost. Ah, salud. Okay. Ah, delicious. That's gonna keep us going. Comradeship and red wine. Now that I've got my chicken laying here, I'm gonna put on liberal amounts of salt. I actually kind of salted my chicken a little bit earlier. The earlier I salt it, the more that seasoning is gonna work in. I was actually talking to someone today about this. The idea that we were all raised to think, oh, you season your meats too early and all of the juice will come out, right? And now it's just like, yeah, a little juice comes out, so what? You dry the meat off and you can go ahead and sear it off. I guess people are worried it's gonna, not be able to sear off if the meat is all wet or something like that, which is true, but you can always just dry that off. Or we're worried the meat's gonna dry out. Actually, your meat starts hanging on to more moisture. It loses very, very little, and it actually holds on to more moisture during the cooking process, so you're not losing so much over time. So you're always better off salting that bird ahead of time. A little piece of liver on there. Ms. Shelby there, looking good. Ms. Maureen, she's been saying that for years and years. Nick Parker's shouting it out. All right, we're talking about seasoning up that bird. Now, the next thing I want to do is, in certain instances, if I've got a great big prime rib or something like that, right? That roast is usually going to take about 2 hours. And when I roast something for 2 hours, it's definitely going to get a nice golden brown crust on it. A chicken, a 4.5 pound chicken would probably be in the oven long enough to get a nice crust on it. But now that I've spatchcocked it, it's cut the cooking time down. And so if I don't brown it off ahead of time, it may not get as much browning as I would like, okay? So moral of this story is, if I've got a small roast, I want to sear it off ahead of time and then finish it in the oven, and that way I'll get that nice golden brown. Again, if it's too small and if it finishes in, say, a 10 or 15, 20-minute roast, you're not going to get any browning to speak of on that thing, okay? So whenever you have a small roast, smaller roasts require a little bit of pre-searing before they go into that oven, okay? Now, I should say, I really kind of started out just getting this chicken prepped and everything. I'm going to get more into the actual roasting technique. We're going to do the culinary school lecture here in a little bit, okay? So right now, we're just kind of getting things in the pan. I want to talk about that stuff in a lot more depth later on. Colby Green, good to see you, brother. Super awesome to see everybody. So you see I've got a saute pan. I don't know how well you can see that, but I've got a saute pan over here, and we're going to start heating that up. I have also started heating up my oven underneath all of this goodness here, okay? So that puppy, I've set it for about 350. 350 tends to be your go-to roasting temperature. If I've got a smaller roast, I tend to go higher temp. We'll talk about this in a little more depth later, but smaller roast, higher temp. Larger roasts, I need to go at a lower temp, right? You don't want a big giant roast at a super high temp. The outside's gonna turn into charcoal and the inside's gonna be dead raw, right? And so 350 to start, but you start adjusting that depending on the size of the piece of meat. And there are other conversations as well, like slow roasting, where you're roasting for 11 hours or something like that. That's a whole other conversation, okay? Right now, standard roasting procedure, actually right now, we're really talking about searing, okay? So what is searing? What am I looking for when I am searing? Anybody out there, shout it out. What are you looking for? There's 3 things I always talk about when we're talking about searing in school. One moment, I could never do this at school. This is actually kind of awesome. I may never go back. Just one moment. Sorry, I want to get a little air going in here. I can't use the fan. You guys won't be able to hear anything. All right, so we're talking about searing, right? 3 things I usually say about searing. 1 thing, high heat. 2 things, small amount of fat. You need a little bit of oil. You can't really sear without oil in there, right? So a small amount of fat. You don't want it swimming. And then the 3rd thing is you have a desired result here, and that desired result is golden brown. If the item that you are searing is not golden brown, my friend, you are not searing. You're not even coming close to it. I don't even know what language you're talking, okay? So I'm going to start out with a small amount of fat in a fairly hot pan. I usually get the pan a little bit hot before I go with the fat. And the fat today, people always want to ask what fat I want to use. Hey, today I've just got my rendered animal fat that I use for everything. I think it's a little bit of duck, a little chicken fat. I think there's a little bacon fat in there. It's all kinds of stuff. It's all going to be good. It's all going to add a little bit of flavor to what I'm doing here. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that. And it's about to get loud and it's about to get ugly because this pan is smoking hot, and that's what I'm looking for. Remember I said searing, high heat, small amount of fat, and I'm looking for golden brown. That's what we're talking about. I got my fat in the pan. It's hitting that smoke point, and I'm getting ready to go ahead and drop my bird in there, okay? If your bird is dripping wet, you want to dry that off before it goes in. Water impedes browning, and we're trying to get some browning here, okay? Going in the pan is going to be loud. Adam Patel, good to see you, sir. Gina Funk Nelson, while that's searing off, one thing I want to point out, I'm stepping away from the bird. Don't poke this thing. Don't pick it up. Don't stir it around. Don't shake it or anything. You can take a little look. Make sure that it's not sticking. But other than that, step away from the bird. We want to get some browning to occur here. And it won't brown if you're constantly poking it and prodding it and flipping it and doing whatever, doing your saute move or whatever. Step away from the bird. While this is happening, I have a chance to wash off my board and sanitize my area. Thank you, chef. That's just what everyone else is probably thinking. Chicken all over me. La 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 la. Smoke on the water. Oh yeah. I'm going to take a quick little pick, and then I'm going to go, quick little peek, and then I'm going to go back to washing up. Spring tongs, guys. If you don't have a pair of these at home, Send away on Amazon. I think they're still delivering, okay? But if you got those funky tongs that your mom gave you that are like a pair of scissors or whatever, they're crap, okay? Get a real pair of tongs. I'm just gonna take a look, and I'm picking it up, I'm lifting it. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm getting a little color on one leg there. I'm just gonna kind of shift my pan here to adjust heat. It was getting too much heat over on one side, so I just kind of move that around. I'm gonna adjust things a little bit. I'm gonna turn down. I usually use numbers, so I'm probably about 8 out of 10 right now. So it's still pretty aggressive, but it's not rocket fuel right now. I'm gonna keep washing my board right now. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, almost there, almost there. The bird is still searing. I'm still on side one. I really haven't poked it too much, haven't done too much. And we're almost back to business. This is half of the teaching is like these transitions in between steps. Okay, I'm gonna take another look under there. And yes, I've got a nice, beautiful little golden brown starting up on that. That's just a beautiful color. It's not quite even. One thing I want to point out as I'm picking that up, that chicken skin will tear super, super easy. So be super gentle if you're doing moves like that, okay? Moving things around. Oh, looks like Sandy Nelson is out there. Shout out. Oh, yeah. She's a bad mama jamma. Come do a cooking. Oak Park Farmers Market. Tell you what, if you guys can get me a power where it won't pop all the time, I was never able to finish anything there. So if you give me constant power, I would love to come down there. I was having issues, I will say. Sorry to say. I love you guys though. Okay, I think I got some nice color on the bottom of this. I'm gonna flip it on over. I just touched it with my other hand. I gotta wash up now. COVID springtime, staying clean, even when it's not the summer of COVID. Let's see, Shelby Lambert from back in the day, awesome. Joni Titherton, it's done. Nice, okay. Well, we will definitely talk then, young lady, because I love getting out there. I love getting out there. I'm gonna miss it. So I just seared off the first side. Residual heat is still cooking this side. Now I'm cooking from the underside. You can see why when you spatchcock this chicken, there's a lot more surface area involved here, and I can get this thing cooked so much faster. So if you know, you really don't need to do a trussed bird for yourself at home, even though I guess that's another conversation. We can certainly talk about that. But just for straight doing a chicken, just to get it done for dinner, this would probably be my recommendation right here. Carissa Jones, good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, Carissa Jones, one of Sacramento's great culinary instructors right there. I know some culinary talent out there, these instructors we have around town. Shout out to my high school teachers. High school culinary teachers. Doing a tough job. Boom. I love you guys. Thanks so much for showing up. This is awesome. Still working on getting this seared on that second side. We're almost ready to start cooking. I was going to throw another ingredient in the mix here just because it's my dinner. I was going to cook this on top of some sweet potatoes. I said that idea of that boulanger potato, right? Variation on that. I'm going to throw a little onion in the mix as well just because, hey, to me, onion's a vegetable. I love a lot of onion when I'm eating, and so it just roasts up with the chicken so well, picks up those juices and everything, and it's just so simple and good. So I'm going to toss a little bit of onion in there. Michael Tui, thanks for showing up, Chef. Melody Dios, good to see you.